Hello and welcome back to Dry Conversations. I'm your host, Whitney Cowell. Joining me today is Phoenix. Hey.
Hello.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, I am Phoenix. I am 33. I currently live in Georgia. I've been here for well over a decade now, coming from Alabama, where I met Whitney. And I am recently divorced and a single mom of three senior fur babies, and I have a cat. And I'm just living my life doing hair down in Little Five Points. It's like a little edgy part of Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm doing pole classes on the side. So I'm just living my best life.
Just having fun. And I love that. You're such a free spirit. And I'm so excited to hear your journey because you've always been a little bit of a free spirit. And I feel like, well, I don't want to like put it into words, but I feel like there was this box that you felt like you had to fit in. And I kind of like watched that happen.
Sure.
And so, yeah, we've known each other for a long time. We also haven't talked in a very long time.
Very long time.
I just see your sweet fur babies online often.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would love to know, because we actually have not, even though we've caught up, we have not had this conversation other than the fact that you were sober. So there's a huge gap in between that I want to know about it. Like, what happened?
Well, let's see. So after high school, I moved up to Birmingham, Alabama for hair school.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I'm going to work up here and I'm just going to be living in the city. And that didn't work out. So I moved back home with my parents, worked at a salon, and I ended up moving to Atlanta in 2013. A friend of mine from hair school had gone to this salon that was like super educational, and I was like, that's where I want to go.
Yeah.
So I moved here when I was like 19 or 20 by myself, and like just came and worked my little booty off at the salon 5 days a week, cleaning the floor, doing whatever to work my way up to the cutting floor. So I am now out on my own in the hair world. I have my own business for, oh my goodness, like 6 years now. So I'm on my own and I love it. It's so much freedom and I enjoy not being told what to do or having a boss. It's so great. And then in 2019 is when I left that salon, and also the year that I got married. So Alicia and I, my ex-wife, who is still my best friend, we co-parent very well. We met in 2018 and totally lesbian U-hauled a year later and got married from the day we met. And 2020 hit, the salon closed, and babies.
I
know. And obviously the world shut down, and 2020 was actually my year to get sober. I didn't have the pressure of FOMO. Even though I wasn't really having fun going out anyways, but I was like, I'm young, I'm in my 20s, I should be going crazy and like out at the club and the bars.
This is my moment. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is the time. And it just like it was not the vibe for me. So I felt comfortable in 2020 to quit drinking. And the first person I told was somebody on Reddit. I like got on there and this random human was like, if anybody needs to talk about anything, I'm here for you. And I was like, that was meant for me. So I messaged them and I'm like, I think I'm an alcoholic. I'm scared to tell my wife. I'm scared to tell anybody. I'm scared to even say it into the universe. And they were like, you just got to do it. And so I had also seen you on Facebook, and I was like, holy shit, Whitney is like a year sober. And like, I remember you as a very light spirit, always smiling and happy. And like, I was like, Whitney is like me. Like, it would, you just see stuff on Facebook and you have your own imagination of what someone's life is.
Yep.
And so, I'm grateful to you. You got me to my first meeting, and I was able to tell my wife that I was an alcoholic. And as somebody who isn't an alcoholic, and nor does she drink, it was like a moment of me really having to stand up for myself, because she was like, well, why can't you just have one glass of wine? And I'm like, I just don't want to. It's
Yeah,
not
because
fun.
I'm sick and I have a gremlin back here that's like
Yeah,
more, and it's like never
exactly.
enough.
Yeah, I'm like, no, it's like one bottle of wine at least. Like, we have two in the fridge at a time, there is no one glass. So I was like, no, 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 I cannot do that. And so that's when my journey began. I spent the year of 2020 getting sober at home. Sweet baby angel Alicia, I was very grumpy. The January of 21 is when I joined a group of folks to help me get sober.
Mm-hmm.
And I found a sponsor, and it changed my life. I am very grateful for that first year. Everything that I learned has stayed with me every single day of sobriety. Any challenges I come across, or anybody else that's like willing to chit chat or reach out for help, I'm like, I have tools in my pocket to help. And like, that's amazing. So, yeah, that was 2021, and I've been sober since. So it's been 5 years now. And I
That's
can't believe
crazy.
it. And it's amazing. I
That's
love it.
crazy because I remember that conversation when you were like, there's people I've been doing this alone. And I was like, oh, that sounds horrible. You're like, it is. It so is. And I was like, okay, well, here's some resources because, I knew that I had people and I knew what my options were. And I chose not to do the work. And I was super miserable. Like being surrounded by like truth and just being like, that's good for you. But like, I think I'm okay. Like, would not recommend that path either.
Right.
So what was going on that made you think, I think I'm an alcoholic? Like, because that is not just like a standard Tuesday thought.
So, I had been dating somebody before my ex-wife, and we did a ton of drinking. It was, we go to the park, we're bringing something, hey, let's grab a margarita after work, like, let's have mimosas on the weekend. Like, we just couldn't do anything without alcohol. And internally, I was starting to feel like guilty about it. And I was just like,
Yeah.
it just seems like a lot. And like, why do we have to be doing it all the time? And I remember she made a comment one time that was like, it's like normal for us to drink like this much for people our age. And in my head, I was like, oh shit, I have a problem.
Yeah.
And so it took me many years to get to where I was to be able to actually acknowledge it. But it was like that moment put a thought in my head. And then from there on out, I was like, I'm an alcoholic. I'm literally like hiding shots. I'm taking shots while my parents are at the house, like from the fridge. Like, why are we doing this?
How long were you in that like hiding? Like, I know this is a problem, but I'm still going to live in my problem. Like, how long do you think that you were trying to live that? Is what, because my parents found out about it and we called it the double life. How long were you doing that?
I would say a couple years for
Oh,
sure. It was
that's
a couple years. It like, and you look back and I'm like, damn, was it really a couple years? But it was a couple years. And the final tipping point for me was ended up coaching gymnastics in 2019 after I left my salon. And I was drinking before going into work. It was an afternoon situation. So I had like a couple hours of like, I'm frozen. I have no time to do anything, even though it was like 5 hours. And the anxiety of the build to go in and like, I just wanted to drink. And I was like, this is crazy. This is so unsafe. Like, I'm dealing with children here that I care about. If a parent found out, like, it was a bad, bad place to go down. And I didn't want to be that person.
Yeah.
So,
I was still drunk from the night before at Saturday practices when I was coaching. I would come in, like, I would just like wet wipe
yeah.
concealer and be like,
Yes. Did
bad. And
nobody
then,
ever
like,
smelt anything on you?
I don't know. I
Oh,
was the head coach of that particular team, so I don't know.
ah,
But like, and to your point, like as a sober person now, like I don't beat myself up for that. But that's one of those truths. It is really hard to confront our situations and the things that we've done. Like I get why people that are like working a certain program, they get to this point and then they just like they relapse because they can't handle it. And I think there's got to be a strong foundation because it was not good. Like it arguably really damaging things that we've done. And like, yes, that is a very shameful, very dangerous, very. I just couldn't imagine as somebody because you and we met in gymnastics when we were teeny tiny.
correct.
And I just couldn't imagine what that would be like now. Like thinking of a coach coming in and doing that and like some of the things that we were doing and how dangerous that is and a parent putting their full trust and being like, no, but I love this kid and I'm acting in a way that shows that I don't love them at all.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. There was another girl that was a coach and around the same time, and she actually got fired because she came in like completely wasted, and like you could smell it and you could see it in her eyes, and it really was heartbreaking, having kids of her own and like watching it and like knowing what's going on, but also what's going on inside of me. And it's like, I get it. But also like, we can't do this. This is really bad.
When you see that, was there a part of you that was like, whew, wasn't me that time?
Correct. Yes. I mean, I tried to be very secretive about it, like it was, some kind of a seltzer mixed in with like a kombucha. So it was like I could drink my bucci at work and no one would know. And it already has this weird fermented smell, And so it was like a low buzz, but obviously extremely inappropriate and not okay, no matter what. But I was like, okay, I really dodged a bullet there. That would have crushed me to have been fired for that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So was that the only, I'm going to ask just like an unfiltered question. Was that the only substance that you dabbled in?
So prior to sobriety, I was a big Molly girl.
Okay.
Love, love, love. I actually got sober and like from alcohol and still did it and had a completely different experience as them together. You black out if you've never experienced that. And that was my drinking career, was blackout.
Yeah.
And so I was still struggling after getting sober from alcohol, and I was still dabbling in some Molly. I ended up getting on some SSRIs and trying to really work on my mental health.
Yeah.
And those did not interact well. And so I have
Sure.
completely tossed that aside. And honestly, within the last year, I have really struggled with my addiction. I have had a lot of loss with my fur babies. I've lost a best friend. And I ended up actually relapsing in December on cocaine because I wasn't addicted to it, so it was okay. And that ended
Sure.
up being a super fun, about a month long situation. And I've had a couple other slip ups since then with it. So honestly, this conversation with you, there's been some things that have happened today and just this week, and it's like my starting over, starting fresh. And I really need to get back into some routine, being around some sober people, because my sobriety brain, I'm a dry drunk.
Yeah.
I have been. So I am very much looking forward to really, truly, genuinely getting down inside of myself and finding love for myself in true sobriety.
Yeah. And thank you for being honest with that. Like
Yeah.
that's because it's not linear. And I feel like some people like, especially if you have like no education of what addiction is,
Hmm.
it's just like, okay, well, what's the like you did it with why can't you? And it's like it doesn't transfer that way because every type of substance does something different in the body. And then by trying something new and being like, this hasn't been a problem, I bet it won't be. Like that's a sick thought, right? Like that's a
Yeah.
but we can understand and not
Hmm.
say that in a mean way, but like we know that it's a sickness and put that in front of us and then just like unlocks a new door in the mansion of addiction. And for some of us, like it takes it, like I was still getting really high after I got sober. And that's something that I had to, talk to a couple of people about to
Mm.
really like understand. Um, it was the relationship that I was in and the anxiety that I felt around that person and trying to bury that feeling. And then as soon as we unplugged that relationship, I was like, oh, I feel better. And you know what I mean? And so,
Yeah.
it's not linear because we're not like we're people and we make mistakes and we're complicated and we experience things and sometimes like we get it wrong. And I don't think that there's shame in getting it wrong, but I think it's really hard when you know the right way to go about it and you choose not to. And I think that that puts us in a really tough mental and emotional space to
Yeah.
get sober.
Hmm. It's also hard. I feel, because it's like I do want to share out loud, on like social media with people about my sobriety journey. And it makes me feel like a fraud, to be
Mm.
like, I am sober for real for 5 years, but then again, it's like, but not really. Only with this one substance. So that's like something I'm working on internally to move past, because I still have a sober mindset. I know what I need to do, and I have the right people in my hands to be able to help me and support me along the way to continue being clear minded about it.
Right. And I think that is such a good point that you made is like, I just don't think that we're supposed to do this alone. I just don't. And I
No.
think the longer that we stay away from our sober people and our sober community, like the I think it creates more space to start believing lies again about
Right.
ourselves and about our addiction. And it just like it dulls the truth. And so that's why, like, for me, I am a raging alcoholic. Like, I was one that kept liquor in the glove compartment and would go for walks a couple times a day during work. You know what I mean? Like, it was bad, bad.
Hmm.
Um, and so I know like I have to stay. If this is going to be a way of life, then part of that way of life is like the people that keep me in that way of life. Like if I say like I'm a runner because I ran a marathon 5 years ago and I don't train and I don't like, am I really a runner?
Right.
Or did I run once? If I'm a sober person and I go and I get help and I stayed sober for a little while, but I'm totally disconnected from all the things that keep me sober and keep me clear-minded, am I really like a fully sober, like mentally, emotionally, and physically sober person? You know what I
Right.
mean? I can't do it alone. Like, experiences showed me, like, it gets real messy real fast for me if I try.
Yeah, it's something that I hear often, you know, when I talk to people who are reaching out for help, you know,
Mhm.
I'm like, the biggest thing I tell them is community. I'm like, the thing that really stuck to me was relatability.
Yeah.
And sitting and hearing stories and talking with a sober community, you know, about our favorite nights being home alone, trashed, you know? And it's like, holy shit, like, there are people that genuinely know what I'm talking about. They
Yeah.
get it. And that is what got me to keep going.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's not just the experience, it's how we felt.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the ugliest parts of me I can put on the table and they'd be like, "Oh, same." And then, and then sometimes it's like, "Oh, and I'm like, "Oh, there's more for you." And I hear it and I'm like, "Oh, thank God I'm learning from you because I don't wanna do that," you know?
Yeah.
Like, and I needed that. Am I honestly, if I like keep peeling back the layers of the onion, I think that my pride needed to know that I wasn't so special in my feelings about it either. Because
Absolutely.
I
Yes.
needed I needed to know, like, hey, you special little snowflake, like this.
Yes.
Oh no, like, you're not the only one that felt this way. Like, guess what? There's a sea of people out there, and I'm about to sit you in a room with 12 others for an hour, and you're gonna listen to
Mm-hmm.
their stories. And my sponsor used to tell me to just like sit there and listen and to write down everything that I related to. And I was like, I wasn't allowed to talk for a little while.
I remember my sponsor telling me one time, uh, "You're not that important." And I was like, holy shit, the world doesn't revolve around me. People aren't just thinking about me. I'm like, I am in my own. We're all doing our own work, and I need to stay on my side of the street and focus on that. And hearing that is so nice. Like, I tell myself that all the time, like, girl, you're not that important. Nobody is wooing over you, or, you know, whatever it is that you're thinking about. I'm like, focus on yourself, keep on going.
I love that. Yes, and the one of the first people I worked with, we're like friends now, but she's also a free spirit. She's like sitting there, we're in the woods, we're having fun. She was like, "So like, it's just," she like would twirl her hair. She was like, "So like, it's just that nobody thinks about you as much as you do." And I was like, "Oh, that was a mean truth."
So good. It's so true. It's so true.
It is. And all of the people that I think are gonna judge me, like, at this point in my life, I have to be, like, real is why am I seeking their approval? And if I'm not seeking their approval, then what does it really matter to me? What part of me is really feeling hurt by this?
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's because there's a part of me that I don't want to be seen. And that's my tendency to hide things, like what you were saying of like wanting to like hide a part of yourself. Like that. And if I'm wanting to hide a part of myself, then I'm not living an honest life. And like
Mhm.
that's one of those things I've had to learn is like a red flag. And I hate it when I see that thing flying in the background.
What ended up being your tipping point?
So I had a roommate. Um, she had a good bit of time sober, but her substances were different than mine.
Hmm.
And we had a wine opener in the apartment. And it's not up to me to say like if she should or should have been drinking as like a sober person from like these things, but not these things. That's not my story.
Hmm.
But as the good alcoholic that I was like, it's in my makeup bag under my bathroom sink. Like, what do you mean? And she was like, that one's mine. And I was like, no, this one's mine. It came with my kitchen. We're arguing. And then she just yelled, effing alcoholic, Whitney. And I went, takes one to know one. And I slammed the door and I was like, that was probably the first honest thought that I had had. And it really scared me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I had been going to another like recovery type of group, but like when we introduced ourselves, it was like, my name is Whitney and I struggle with, and that's the space where like I knew I needed healing. And this girl was my roommate. She was somebody I coached with. And it ended up being like she needed a place. And I was like, my lease is coming to an end. Like it just makes sense for us to live together. And she was just like so raw and honest about things. And then I was telling her my stuff and she was like, some of this isn't like normal, right? And I was like, what do you mean? And so she was like, because she had been in therapy and I
Mm.
hadn't. And it kind of snowballed into like, you should look at, like, if you're really looking for answers and you're looking to change your life, there are some places that you can start. And so I started going to this place and like I confronted like my fear of being angry, because I had this like, if I turn it on, I'm never going to be able to stop. Like I'm going to rage until I die. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm scared of that feeling. From my codependency. I confronted my really toxic relationship with food. Just like a bunch of things. And I remember I went in there and it's like, it was separated by like men and women. So it's just like a bunch of women in a room and a lot of them are going through like hardships, and a lot of them were in that group specifically really codependent. So like I felt like I could just like put it out there and nobody would think twice about anything that I was saying. And so I just shared like, my name's Whitney and I think I struggle with alcohol. And then I talked about something completely not on that topic. So that was me. That was like my soft launch into like, this might be a problem for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, like a couple months later, like this roommate and I were going to go on a road trip for my 25th birthday. And this was a little less than a month before I got sober, and I was supposed to be driving us. And we were in the parking lot, and like, I don't remember getting into the car, but I had passed out in the driver's seat. And she had to like while we were about to go, like I'd put the car in reverse and like conked. And so she like threw the car in park and like pulled me out, put me in the passenger seat. She had the address, so she drove, and I came
Mm-hmm.
to like a couple hours later. And that's when she knew that I had a problem and lightly brought it up a couple weeks later, and was like, how is that group going? Because I would drink like a bottle of wine and then go to this group, showing up just so drunk. And yeah, that was, so my tipping point was, getting in this argument where somebody that I trusted and that I respected and that knew a lot more about life than I did looked me in the eyes and called me an alcoholic. And that was the permission that I needed to be like, I'm an alcoholic. I went to a meeting the next morning at 9:00 in Nashville. And that was the last drink. I still have like the bottle back here of the last bottle I ever had. So
I love it. I love it.
it was
Man.
crazy. And it was miserable. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there's nothing glamorous about early recovery. There's nothing glamorous about like the process of actually getting, like, sobriety can be super fun, but like
Right.
getting sober sucks a little bit.
Yeah, it is. I will say, like, there are, it's like a teeter-totter for me on like positives and negatives, I guess. Like every year has brought something different and something difficult and something amazing all at the same time. Which I am grateful for. It is definitely a little bit easier now on the alcohol side. I'm like very grateful that I'm like, yes, I can live without you. I'm good.
Right?
I mean, when I was first getting sober, Alicia and I were supposed to get married, and I was like, how am I going to be sober at my wedding? And I mean,
Oh, I
like
know.
all these thoughts. Okay, I just won't drink, and like maybe I'll just do something else, you know? And it's just like, what are you doing? Like the fact that we're having this conversation in your head and you were having so much anxiety and you were so concerned about your sobriety at your wedding, which is supposed to be like my entire family is going to be there, my extended family, everybody that I love. And I'm worried about being fucked up. Am I even going to remember my wedding? You know?
Right.
So for me, a one day at a time is so important, to really bring the lens back into something smaller that I can swallow has saved me for sure.
Yeah. And I know that feeling because you're like, then it's like, how am I going to do this over? What about this? What about that? And it's like, I mean, I was worried, like, what do you mean I'm not going to have champagne at my wedding? Keep in mind, I was so single at the time that I was having these fears. And it's like, I remember my therapist being like, Winnie, you're not even in a relationship. And she just left it at that. And I was like, Bonnie, that was not nice.
The future tripping though is real.
It is. And then you get to the moment and it's like, what was I so afraid of? Like, am I so afraid of my life and my personality that I can't just show up as I am?
Right. Nobody's going to like me for exactly who I am, even though people love me for exactly who I am and always have.
Yeah. And then we learn, like, oh, it's me that doesn't like me.
Exactly.
That's the problem.
Was that car experience like your last hurrah?
Kind of. So that was for my birthday. So that was in October. So actually it was a little bit more than a month. And then her birthday was in November. And I took her to like a thing that she wanted to go to for her birthday. And it was like still in state, but it was like, you know, we're going to go, we're going to do this thing. And then I had been sneaking off because I had like a bottle in my bag, you know, like in my purse. And I'd been like sneaking. Took a few too many bathroom trips. And she was like, you know, it was just, it got to that point. And I think when we talked about it after, you know, after I detoxed, you know, she said her anger came from me like pulling one over on her. She was like, I can't believe that I lived with somebody in active addiction and I didn't even see it. She was like, you were so good at hiding it. You were so normal being so messed up. She was like, and she would tell me things. I was like, I wasn't there for that. You know, like there was apparently a night, like I played a whole game of charades by myself in the living room. And I was like, what? She was like, yeah, I just sat there and watched. It was weird. I was like, that's humiliating. But like, also she took video and I was like, I think that like my ego needs to watch this. I think that I need to be humiliated a little bit. And I did. Absolutely. But like, you know, I think that a lot of people in our lives probably feel that way if we've kept them at an arm's distance, where it's like, and also I'm an alcoholic. Like I lost a lot of friends when I admitted I was an alcoholic, even if it hadn't directly impacted that relationship.
It's like starting over. I mean, I've always been a person that hasn't had like a big group of friends, you know. Yeah. I mean, I being in Atlanta, I know, you know, a bunch of people now, but like a bunch of those people are in the past.
Yeah.
You know? And it's I have found, you know, people in my life that don't drink, don't want to drink, haven't really ever drank. And even if they do drink, I can be around them. And it's not a weird situation. And they're not being an alcoholic. They're not being crazy. They're like, one drink at dinner, we're good to go. And I'm over here like, finish it, like
yeah
like,
isn't that wild to like watch a normal person drink and they just like you're like, that's it? I was like, oh, you must have had a couple before you got here.
Right. I know, like you didn't even drink half of it.
I know. And like you know, my nasty, like, raccoon self would be like, throw that back on the way out. It's like, you gonna finish that? Can I have it? Like,
Right.
it's so embarrassing. So revisit our habits.
Yeah. But on the friend topic, it is difficult, I think, for anybody to really find friends in today's world that an activity doesn't revolve around drinking. I mean, here in Atlanta, there is always shit going on. There's festivals, there's celebrations, events, and blah, blah, blah. And it's just like literally everything is alcohol based. And like
Mhm.
society tells us you can't have fun without it. And so when you're faced with the world without it, it's like, what? I don't even know where to go. Like, it is this massive field in front of me, and I don't understand what's happening out there. So I'm grateful for the time that I have found people,
Yeah.
and my people have grown to a small group that I really love and trust and appreciate and are good people. And honestly, I think most of them don't drink. One of my very good friends still does, but in a safe space, like it's totally fine. But I appreciate having my friends that it's not ever a thought or an issue that I'm going to be around. I'm like, they're on my level. They're like, let's go get more glitter.
It's good to have that community. And
Mm,
I think it's really important that we realize we don't have to isolate ourselves forever from alcohol. And there's a difference between not being around it and not participating in it.
for
Like
sure.
one of my very best friends is a normal human without a sick brain, and she can drink. And when she hosts people at her house for dinners, there's always alcohol there. And I don't have to say, I'm sorry, I'm not going to come
Right.
because you're serving alcohol. I think early in my recovery, and this, I recommend this for anybody in early recovery, which is early recovery is typically like your first 2 years. It's like year one, you have no idea what's happening. And then year two, you're just trying to implement all the things that you've tried to learn in year one. And
Hmm.
and maybe then I turned down a lot of opportunity and a lot of things, and it was very isolating, but I found sober people to show me sober ways. And now as somebody who's just a little bit more mature in my recovery, I can take the things that these other people taught me and I can show up and I know what my boundaries are. I know what my limits are. I know what a safe space is and is not. And I know how to advocate for myself in those ways. Like
Hmm.
somebody handing me a drink and me being like, is there alcohol in there? Like, no. And I was like, okay, but I smell something and I need you to be honest with me. And then
Right.
like trying to get me to drink. And I
Wow.
turned around and I was like, call it as I see it. This person is like, I need somebody to be honest. They're like, no, put that down. There's alcohol in that. And I was like,
Wow.
great. And that's why we surround ourselves with safe people.
That is wild. And,
Yeah.
that's like honestly one of my biggest fears is like me being like, I'm sober. And then like somebody bullshitting me and somehow a drop of alcohol landing in my mouth. And I'm just like, I refuse to have that happen. It like, if I go to a restaurant and I get a mocktail, whoever is at the table will be tasting it before I drink it because I'm
Mhm.
just like, I cannot risk a sip.
Yeah.
Like, I do not want it near me, and I just cannot. So, that is wild that somebody did that. I'm sorry to hear that.
It's okay.
But
I'm like,
fuck them.
honestly,
Take a
I
look
don't see
in
that
the
person.
mirror too.
Yeah. But that's why like I called it loudly,
Yeah.
so
Hmm.
other people know too. But I think it's wise, and I think it's beautiful that you're at the place where you're like, my life isn't worth it, to like throw away again. Like my life is worth too much to say like I want that drink. And I think that that is such a testimony of like how you've grown in your recovery. And I'm hoping that in the other areas where you see struggle, like the same principles and the same things apply. And anything that you're going to put above that, it's just going to it's going to put chains around your ankles. And you were born to run in freedom. So, like, why would you ever hold yourself back from that?
Right. Yes. I also wanted to add on and reiterate that I agree with beginning of sobriety, picking and choosing the places that you go and saying no, and that is okay. You
Yep.
can say no every single time. It's for you. And when you're ready, you can say yes. And if you show up for a minute and you're uncomfortable, you leave.
Yeah.
That is such an important message to people in new sobriety. It's like you have to think about yourself. That's what it's about, and if anybody has anything negative to say to you about that, bye-bye.
Yeah, they're not worth, if they don't care about your future, why would you keep them in your presence? Like that, bye.
Exactly.
They're basically telling you that like your life is not important to them, and I think that that's crazy. It's a crazy thing to say to somebody. And
Oh.
like, and I think people don't realize, especially as like we're entering into like this new world of sobriety. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know that all of us have been taught the things that like we don't need permission to do. Like you don't need
Yeah.
permission to bring somebody else with you to help keep you in check. You are a boundary of mine is like I will always drive myself. You're welcome to come with me, but if I need
Correct.
to leave, like you're either leaving with me or you're staying. Like we're
Yeah.
not negotiating time frame. If I feel uncomfortable, I'm getting my car and I'm going. That's it.
Agreed.
And then like no is a complete like I don't owe you a reason why I feel uncomfortable, why I don't want to be there. No thanks is totally fine. And
Yeah.
then you'll know if they continue to invite you places, like okay, they'll either learn from it or you'll just find out that that person wasn't for you in the first place. Like there's so many ways that you can stay safe. I've called a sponsor from a
Absolutely.
bathroom before.
Same. Yes.
Yeah, it's a really hard learning curve, but then you do it and you're like, "Oh, that wasn't bad." And then to me, like my boundary, it was very addicting having boundaries. Like I loved that part.
It was empowering. I mean, to get to the point where you're wanting to test yourself, I feel strong enough in my sobriety that I feel like I can take the next step is huge.
Yep.
And I'm like, setting all those boundaries is amazing. And like, that's what we didn't have before. So, like, the growth to be able to stand there, know yourself, and know what your boundaries are. I'm like, round of applause, boo. You did that.
Right. Right. It's so good.
Yeah.
Um, well, if anybody is curious, if they're struggling, if like this story resonates with them and they want to reach out to you and they want to connect with you, what's the easiest way for somebody to like get a hold of you if they have questions?
Yeah, you can reach out to me on Instagram. I am My Tribe of Light. I am always open and available to chat with anybody. I'm a safe space, no matter who you are, and you are loved no matter what.
Kayla, this is, oh, I'm sorry. I should call you Phoenix. Ah, I slipped. I'm so used to it. Decades of unwinding a name. It's been a really good conversation. And I'm so thankful that you shared your heart. It's an honor to hear your story. And so I just wanted to thank you again for coming on and doing this. And, before we close out, just give like one more opportunity, like any piece of advice that you may have to somebody.
I would say just find community. If it takes just finding one person that you can trust to tell them and be vulnerable, that's what's going to get you to be successful. You got to take baby steps and you'll find your way to a happier life. I promise you, it's greener on the other side.
If that ain't the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this has been another fantastic episode. Thanks to my sponsor, 3PL Systems, and anybody that's watching this. Thanks for continuing to make this happen, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.